Orders. So just to get us started here, like, Dan, what what motivates you to always be out front?
It's a good question, and it's really simple. Is it's the intersection of my job is to help my company to succeed and reach its goals. And personally, when I can learn things and be on the cutting edge and accomplish that intersection is why. No matter what it is, it's like if it's something new and it may help me accomplish my goal, then that helps me learn, grow, have a good time, and do my job well.
So it's more fun for you when you're out learning new things and kind of like stepping into the unknown?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my background. I spent 10 years in the military, and then you get out of the service and you're not sure what you want to do. And you find something that, like RevOps, where you're kind of at the intersection of all the different things.
Yeah.
There's always something to learn. And when there's, not a lack of new challenges, there's always then an abundance of different ways that you can approach them. And it just keeps things fresh and fun.
Dude, well, we're going to get into that today. Fresh and fun, new things, learning. And not everything that we're going to talk about today is what, was easy or it continues to be easy. But, we're going to be talking about AI and go to market and some of what Dan Page is doing at Human. Our other guest is Walter. I don't even know how to say your last name, Walter. How do you say your last name?
Velazquez.
Well,
That's
that I know how to say. Is that your last name? That's in the middle. Okay. Velasquez, I could say. So Walter's a growth architect with Winning by Design. I think I can confidently say, without a doubt, Walter's analyzed more SaaS companies in more detail than anyone on this call. I'm pretty sure. And we have like 100 people on this call. Um, and Walter carries himself with confidence and the kind of confidence that comes from competence, from just having seen a lot. Like the more you see, the less can surprise you. I think, Walter, you've probably seen pretty much everything. Colon. Now we got a new entrant into the market. We've got AI. So I'd love to just hear from you, like, how much of a change does AI represent for how companies will go to market in the future? And how much change do you expect us to start seeing in like benchmarks and results?
by the hour almost, right? Like we hosted the Impact Summit in May, and we published the research, like 8 or 9 research papers. And even by the time those research papers were coming out, we knew that these companies, the ones that had the demos in the stands and so on, they were launching new features day in, day out. So it's really exciting. I haven't seen a revolution just like this when I was leading revenue operations teams. Like the things we can do today is just like I go back and I think, oh my, it almost makes me feel like I want to be back in the field building stuff. It's just like nothing compared to the things that we had to go through in the past just to get budget and to do some of this stuff that you can now do just like this. It's really exciting.
So we're starting to see some stuff, and this isn't the topic of today's conversation, but we are starting to see some barriers get broken, like results barriers. Like we're seeing companies go from 0 to 20 million in revenue with fewer than 30 people on their payroll. And then they hit 50 million and they only added another couple of people. And then they hit 100 million and they're still not above 100 people. It's like, wait, what's happening here? Like we're seeing a lot of kind of automation in go to market, a lot of automation in purchasing. And today's conversation is going to be about, well, what about a company that's people powered, that wasn't built on a basis of automation, that wasn't AI native from the get-go? And a lot of us work at companies like that. Where are the opportunities to kind of get that breakthrough kind of automation and performance? Where can we step ahead of our competition by identifying those opportunities and going after them? Um, so let's set a little context for today's conversation. So Walter and I are with Winning by Design. Dan is with Human. By the end of this and Human is working right now on automating pieces of its customer journey. And we're going to learn a little bit more about what you're working on, how you chose those things, what it's looked like to do it. But by the end of this call, I would love for everybody here to have a clear view of what you could do, what you could do to introduce AI into your own GTM, like a few simple steps. So we'll we'll try to distill it down to that, like, what could I do in my company to take a few steps forward? And even though Walter and Dan are rock stars, which you've already established, um, I don't think this is going to be intimidating because the people we have on the call by definition are all innovators. Like we found when we put a topic like this out there, the people who flock to it are by definition the innovators. So I think you're going to have a hard time scaring people. I'd say, Walter and Dan, give us your best stuff. Give us your best stuff and we'll pick it up and we'll run with it. So just to get us started, Dan, just help us set some context. Maybe tell us a little bit about your company, Human, what you offer, who your customers are, just so that we know kind of the domain that we're working in when we start talking about automation.
Yeah, simplistically, without getting too much into the company itself. I mean, we deal with cybersecurity, right? And we deal it with it in the media space or the traditional cyber fraud space or in government, right? So whether it's click fraud and click defense for sites on the internet or traditional account protection stuff, we embody all of those products and services.
Got it. And you said in government?
Government as well. Yep. They have a lot of the same problems, obviously, and sometimes, more so than, other people because of the very nature of the security that they need to provide with their data.
But it goes beyond government. It's government and commercial sectors.
Correct. Yep.
Got it. Okay. All right. So cybersecurity, fraud detection, fraud prevention. And you've been with Human for how long, Dan?
About a year now. I think it's a year in August, as a matter of fact.
And you're running RevOps?
Yep. And whatever else they want me to do.
And you stepped into this role. You've got a great something interesting just happened. A whiteboard. Okay, that's gone. You stepped into this role. You've got a great background in RevOps. If we rewind to kind of like a few months in, what were you seeing at Human? What was working well? What were the opportunities that you thought where you could do things better? Like set a little context for why you even stumbled into AI as a potential unblocker.
Sure. I think it's a couple of things. So just like any entry into a new role, new company is, you kind of assess the battlefield, like what's going on, what do you do well, where we see gaps. And we had a very unique set of circumstances with respect to, we had a few companies that had come together a couple of years earlier. And that in and of itself lends itself to, there's still pockets of disparate processes, right? You have some scattered tech, some segmented or bifurcated processes. So there was a lot of assessment going on. And at that time, I think, in parallel, I'm always looking at, well, what can help me start to solve some of these? So when I put the big matrix up of, racking and stacking the challenges that I found, it's always on that matrix of impact and effort, right? So what are the biggest, impact, each one individually? How do they rate? What's the impact to solving them? What's the effort to do it? The thing you have to look at is that effort to solve. It changes all the time with new tech, right? Going back to when mobile was introduced, when you and I met many years ago, to no matter what it is, there's always something coming in. And AI has been around for the last couple years in a big way, where it kind of was splashy, and it started to become on everyone's mind. But it hadn't been to the point until this year, I think, something that truly was going to impact us in a meaningful way. And I think if you rewind just a couple of years and you look at all the embedded AI stuff, it truly was kind of just very unimpressive. And how do I apply it? It's not a game changer. But when you see things like even Jack that's hanging off of your website, you start to say, well, okay, well, let me go play with this and see how much has it really changed. And that's when you really start to get those aha moments, that it's like the farther you dig into some of the tech now, it truly has moved the needle to the point that it changes your perspective on that effort part of that impact and effort matrix. And
Yeah.
that's where it was, okay, I have to take a serious look now at the technology that's out there and see how I can apply it to my challenges.
Okay. So I'm trying to put myself in your shoes. I'm seeing advances in AI that make the art of the possible really come to life. Like, oh my goodness, I can have a conversation with a robot. That's amazing. But then I turn back and I look inside the company, and not to put words in your mouth, I think I'm just trying to repeat what you said. I've got disparate processes. I'm running it this way in this part of the business and that way in another part of the business. Maybe I'm not well defined in defining kind of how my customer journey is articulated or measured or executed. So how do I take something that's so beautiful and pristine and apply it within a company where I still have some reconciling to do? How did you think about kind of the process piece of this before we get to the AI, just the getting ready for it?
Well, I think it goes back to kind of what I mentioned, which is, you have to have a firm understanding of, well, what are all the things that I could potentially do? Start with, kind of a high level matrix. So if you think about what I looked at, it was basically, where is my squeakiest wheel? And then what is my return on actually fixing that? So
Okay.
you can have a lot of challenges in the business and no one will have a problem of telling you. It's like my boss at our kickoff, he had Captain Obvious outfit on because everyone can tell you it's wrong. However, not everyone can quantify the impact of solving those. So that was really the start of, it's like, well, what is in it for the business if these are solved? Whether it's customer retention or it's, or if it's something to do with prospecting or intake of leads or, defining your ICP. It's like, what are the things? What is the impact of solving that? And that was the start to stack rank everything that I had. And then I
Okay.
had to go on the second part of it, which is, okay, now what is the effort to solve it? And the
Yeah.
applicability in context of the new tools in AI was then, well, I know nothing about this stuff. And I
Mm.
need to reduce the risk of implementing or doing something in order to be able to get money to do it and not, screw up in a big way. So it started an educational path before I could decide what I was going to do. So I had to start learning about, well, what is practically being executed around broad strokes of things that I wanted to accomplish, whether it was, client success or whether it was some of the other go-to-market functions. So
Okay, so you can see the battlefield, you have an idea of what's possible, and now you're going on a personal education journey.
yeah. Yeah, that I can't tell you that was the most fun part is, what you don't want to do is just, ask somebody solve my problem for me because that's a high risk when you don't have any, true understanding yet of yourself of what can be done. So it wasn't necessarily a journey to become a domain expert, but it was a journey to very quickly and rapidly find out what are the things that are actually being accomplished and things are being, used and completed out there in the marketplace. So it was really looking at that. And the only way that I could do that was starting finding some free courses, looking at white papers, Googling things, like looking for, show me someone that accomplished anything broadly around my stack ranked items. And then that leads to the next step and the next step. It's like the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. The single step is there somebody that actually solved the problem? Take the hype out of it. Did they solve a problem? And that was where I then gained the toehold in a couple of the areas, like on the customer success side and a couple other components on the front end of the very top of the funnel that I decided, hey, I'm starting in these two areas. Things actually work in these areas.
Got it. Okay, so I'm going to take a leap and state that probably everyone on this call is on their own personal learning journey. Probably everyone on this call has a business that where not everything is perfect, like where you could assess the battlefield and figure out kind of opportunities to go make things better. And probably everyone on this call could use a personal learning journey like the one that you just talked about in terms of like what would actually really work. So I think what we would like to do is follow you, Dan, down that path. My guess is once you kind of said, "Hey, AI will solve our problems," everyone just said, "Yeah, I bet it will. Here's some money."
Well, yeah, I laugh because, everyone's skeptical, right? I mean, nobody wants to risk capital on something that's unproven, and especially when you're trying to be the innovator. And just because you found a white paper or an instance that, hey, well, somebody else is able to do it, instantly they're going to look around and say, well, what do you think? What makes you think we can do it when we don't have that domain expertise? So it really did have to start with, overall, how do I reduce the risk of trying something that is the toehold for acceptance. So I had to spend some time, and I'll go on the two paths. The one of what can I learn? It was, well, okay, we've got Gemini embedded in our tools. How does it actually work? Right. So I took a lot of the free courses, it takes, a couple weeks to do some of these, just started to learn. And it was like, okay, well, everyone says hallucinations and all this stuff. Well, what does that really mean? Is it really hallucination or something else? Are we doing something wrong? So then I took a prompting course, and it just snowballed into very simple week by week things that I started to learn more on, and really understand how the stuff was working. And that reduced the risk from, I feel I could at least start to talk credibly about what these things do. And it allowed me to ask different questions of what is out there. Now, on the how do I reduce the risk in the business for them to start listening to me? It's now I can articulate in a plain fashion. I have the Venn diagram of, here are the things that I know we want to work on. Here are the things that I can prove and show out in the marketplace that are being accomplished with these tools. And here's the journey I'm taking to lend my understanding and be able to steward these processes. Because I went from just how do I create prompts and use Gemini to, starting taking Kellogg courses and MIT courses and everything else. And I'm not advocating that somebody has to do that, but the point is learn something about the things that you're looking at, because then when you bring those three together, people will lean in and listen to you. Okay, Dan, you're picking items that are high impact, low risk for us to try. You've shown me that it's been done in other places, and you're demonstrating to me that you are taking the time to learn these skills. Those are all risk reducing things. And if you
Mhm.
think about that, the dollar value of doing those are smaller as well because they're higher impact, low effort. So that's why we started with augmentation of leads and data and dropping things in Salesforce and creating emails. So it was do lower risk things. But when you bring together that Venn diagram, your business is going to lean and say, absolutely, it's low cost, it's low risk, and it gets us a toehold into this journey on AI.
So kind of what's possible and what people are making work out in the market. What are the opportunities for me? But where I'm really curious is that last thing you said. Like you actually, I think I heard you say you went into lead augmentation, and I'm
Yeah.
think that you actually built some of this stuff, maybe not in a production way, but in a proof of concept way to show what's possible. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. And then that's kind of the cool thing is there's very low risk things you could do. Like when leads come in, you've got a gajillion tools you could buy out there in the marketing ecosystem, and they grow exponentially every day. But there's simple things that, well, I want to add specific information, classify things in a specific way. AI can do that. How do I do that in an environment where I'm getting things in from coming in from Marketo, and usually I don't enrich anything till it's already in Salesforce with whether it's Zoom or whatever data source you have. What's that middle, that no man's land where I'm looking for a little extra, information? So I started there and I started adding industries, things like that, really, trying to practice how do I gather information out there from the public knowledge base, augment the information that I have, and then insert that in a meaningful way into the process. And that was kind of the toehold. Then it was, well, all right, let's look at email. So we've got a lead came in, it jumps into the system. I know the size of the company, the information, the industry, whatever, the contact involved. I started reaching into LinkedIn and looking at publicly at who is Dave Boyce and what is the account he's with, crafting emails and then dropping those into a field in Salesforce that then my SDRs can look at it and they can craft and customize that email. But all of it was for a very specific reason of learning how to architect things, move through middlewares, combine systems. And that's very simple. Like that's a very low risk thing. I'm adding information on a lead. I'm creating an email for an SDR, but it was a learning point more than just the outcome of, hey, I made it easier for an SDR.
I'm like almost picturing you kind of the mad tinkerer in your shop, making some interesting things come together. Now there's some curious people, maybe the person you report to or one of your stakeholders who are like looking over your shoulder, like, wait, you're doing what on an automated basis with you're creating what? You're writing automatic emails and shoving them right into Salesforce. Wait, teach me more. I'm imagining that you're like you're attracting attention by just making stuff
Absolutely.
happen.
100%. And again, the other thing that it does too is everyone is either, risk averse or they're skydivers and they do crazy things. And there's a flavor in between there. And, you start to flush out who are those people that are interested and they want to know more. They hear about it, and rather than going, that AI stuff is just garbage, it doesn't work yet. They're the ones that go, how are you using that? That's kind of, what's going on? People start to lean in, and just like anything, like back in pharma, it was, key opinion leader, where, you find the influencer and they influence all the other doctors. You don't have to convince all the doctors. You have to convince some of the key opinion leaders, and the people that lean in and really want to know are the ones that they'll help you kind of, spread the word, if you will, of, hey, we need to, do something. And even though honestly, the impact on others is indirect and it's a very positive way, other departments then want to get in on it. Again, you'll flush out those innovators. They're like, those knuckleheads over there and go to market are messing around with AI. I want to do it too. I want to show them I can do it. So they start investigating things. So it's contagious, that curiosity, once people see things start to be done. And humbly, I take credit for like helping light that spark, but it takes on a life of its own, and people really want to get involved with it. So I can't tell you how fun it is, but yeah, it was tinker, mess around, make something work, and then people get involved and want to know more.
I love it. And I think if we just keep this workshop analogy and this tinker analogy, I think there's a difference between that, proving what can be done, and actually putting something into production, like a scaled, kind of repeatable, systematized thing that that's gonna be part of your go-to-market strategy. Do I have that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's walking that ladder, right? Now I have some domain expertise, and there's a gentleman on my team. I got to tell you, he's salt of the earth, one of the best human beings ever. His name's Kevin Thigpen. I don't know if he's listening or not. I know he's got stuff to do, but he is a very technical guy. He knows
Yeah.
Apex code, Python, all that stuff. And he is always abundantly curious about things, right? So instantly he, partnered and he jumped in. He said, "Hey, Dan, let's kind of do this." So he went on his technical journey of learning all of this stuff and became kind of the tinkerer's partner in crime. And we said, okay, while we're learning more about how to do this ourselves, now it was, what is also low risk is what's already embedded in the tools that we have. There's things that we may not have turned on. There's things that may be offered and have been offered for a couple of years that may or may not be great or not, but everyone's kind of been going, AI, tried it, it doesn't work. So we went down that parallel path of saying, well, okay, the tools that are already embedded in our process, to directly answer your question, some of these things already have AI in it. Well, again, let's go back to our matrix. What are some of the challenges that we've prioritized we want to go after, that there may be something embedded in our tools already? So now we're talking something that's already embedded at scale in your process, that now you're going to try to turn something on or leverage or tweak something that, that's AI in those tools. Turn it on, figure out how to use it. Whether it's, your outbound email tools like Groove or whatever. We just started tinkering with some of these things. So now, again, lowering the risk, lowering the concern. We're embedded in the scalable enterprise processes we have. So we're building domain expertise. We're building credibility. We've already got things built into processes at scale. We are reducing risk as we go. And we're
Okay.
increasing our ability to make good decisions rather than, this is a moonshot. Let's do everything. It either works or it doesn't.
So let's fast forward a little. Let's assume that at this point, anyone who's paying attention at Human knows that Dan and Kevin have got some interesting stuff going on, and they've proven that stuff can happen. You built this matrix of all the things that you could do. You've prioritized. Well, I'd like to jump to the point where you pick something. Like,
Yep.
let's go, of all the things we could do and that we've proven that we can do, that's the thing we want to go attack and systematize.
Yeah, it's a great question. So that process, we iterated through it till we really came down to two things where you have to pick, either A or B. And really it was, and I think this, my decision-making process, I was either on the very top of the funnel and looking at, generating pipeline earliest on in the funnel and how we catch it, acquire it, classify it, SDR process, top of funnel for sales, or it was on the back end, because we've been on a journey since we brought all these companies together to make sure that we have a best in breed client lifecycle, and we increase our gross retention rate, right? So it was going like this, and it was, it doesn't matter how much you dump in the front if you've got leakage in the back. So we just very simply said, it makes more sense to us, more bang for our buck, if we say, hey, how do we increase the quality of interaction with our client base and decrease the amount of workload and tasks potentially that we have for our internal account managers and team. So that was more of the evaluation. Was it's we've got multiple wins on the back end for reducing cost to serve, increasing quality, et cetera. So that's the genesis. Then we then blew that out and said, well, what would our success criteria look like? And we lined up those two things. The success criteria on focusing on the account management and client lifecycle challenges that we laid out was much more compelling than just pouring stuff in the top of a funnel and saying, hey, we're finding the right targets, because there was a whole bunch of other things like, well, okay, now I found it and I'm gaining access, making sure I conduct quality discovery, can I truly measure the success the same way? So it was like easier lens to, to put on the back half, on the other side of the bow tie, as you would say.
Okay. Yeah, the other side of the bow tie, the post initial sale kind of customer journey that has to do with first impact, recurring impact, retention, expansion.
Yep.
So now we've narrowed in on that. We're now not, you probably have someone tinkering still, but you want to systematize this thing. Like, you want to go after this in a productionalized way. We want to design it into our GTM. I think this is when you start collaborating with Winning by Design and, represented by Walter here, to really figure out, like, how would we design this in a way that that would become part of our go-to-market process. Do I have that right?
Yeah, so once you get into the, hey, you made the decision to do it, you've got the problems kind of identified, and there's several big problems that you'll have to obviously hone it in even tighter and tighter. You
Right.
come to then, well, you start with bandwidth, right? And internal knowledge. So you say, I've only got so much bandwidth, and we've been increasing our domain expertise, but we need, like a combat multiplier, right? Like eyes on the ground. And that's where it was, we partnered with you, for training and some other things for our go-to-market teams and our sales leaders and coaching. You've already had your tentacles out there. You're able to interact with a lot more, companies that are, going through the same journey we are. So you see a lot what's going on. You've built out and you've hired domain expertise within the company that have done, a lot of these things. So building a team around you that can, execute on the priorities that you're building out, as well as augment your knowledge and truly have a mind share. Like, no one on your team has told me what to do. It changes too fast. None of them have the lock on what's happening, but all of them, their perspective and what they can see is a lot more than I could do on my own. So bringing them in just from that perspective was already a win. And then obviously the bandwidth extension, and then the expertise that, Walter brings to the table, that collaboration is what's actually going to get it across the line. Otherwise, I don't have the dollars, the time, the bandwidth to build all of that type of knowledge internally, and then do all the journey to figure out what is the total art of the possible without having, a partner like you guys.
I love it. It's a very thoughtful and kind of self-aware way to. You did a lot. All of the pre-work to prove what could happen, to get people's attention, to get funding and commitment lined up, and then you had the foresight to pull in reinforcements. Now we're going after a productionalized version. I'm going to turn to you, Walter. Dan is a ball of energy with a million priorities at any given time. How do you step into an environment like that and get focused on kind of a design first approach to implementing automation?
I think ever since Dan started speaking in this webinar, I want to call out something that shouldn't go unnoticed, which is the role of someone in the organization who's taken the lead and the accountability for AI in go-to-market. And that, of course, has been Dan, but we work with so many clients, Dave, this, that like there's no one who's really taking that lead, and everyone is kind of like going in one direction or the other, saying like, yeah, we should do something with AI, but what, there is so much going out there. And until there is that person designing, they say, you are going to be accountable for our AI go-to-market strategy. Okay. And the fact that Dan already had earned that right, and because he had been everything that he'd been describing, that just paved the way for a successful beginning of our engagement. if that hadn't been the case, we wouldn't have gotten to the point where we can actually get started. So when we came in, Dan and the team, Kevin and JD, they had already been doing the early work of, or like, now we know where we want to focus. We didn't have to spend time with that. They were mapping the process. They were already doing that part, and they were saying, here's what our post-sales journey looks like, and what are the things that happen in each of those stages. And yes, the process is broken, but we're gonna use this as an opportunity to fix it, instead of, hey, like, we have all these issues in the post-sales journey, and it's very dangerous to try and implement AI until we haven't solved that. And I think, Dan, like, this is a correct me if I'm wrong here, but I always felt that you're approaching this as, yes, I know we have gaps in our process. We're not going to wait until we fix that and we document it and we implement it. We're going to use this opportunity to fix some points in the process that we know are high impact, instead of just waiting for that. And I think the combination of a great team that is well led and an organization that is bought in, like, there's this story that I've been wanting to weave in, that point down where you take this one slide to the CEO and the CRO and you said, like, what would it mean to the company if we could do this? And it was like a simple description of what an account management co-pilot would do for an account manager, saying, like, what if our account manager can log into the screen today, every day or every Monday, and say, like, here are the things that are top priority. Here are the things I already started for you. Here are the things that you should do, like, and he tells you, this would make all the difference, right? Boom. So we came in with a lot of work that had been done, and it, like Dan just said, we are like playing the role of a thought partner and like kind of like a product management in a way, where just like helping everyone go in one direction, but now we're all working towards the same goal. And there are like a million questions that we don't know yet. Well, like last week, July 17th, like there was a new release, and now, like all of a sudden the approach that we thought we would take, now we're going to take another, but we're all rowing in the same boat and we know we're North Star. So I think it has been, yeah,
let me just dig in on that. We know where the North Star is, and you talked about that simple screen, and you said something about a co-pilot. So I'm playing catch up here. Everyone on the phone is playing catch up here. So I just want to pause for a second. Is that the thing that we're building, a prioritization schema for my account managers?
Not necessarily. Let me serve it up as it truly is an account manager co-pilot that, when you think about your post-sale journey, just simplify it, right? It's like, don't overcomplicate things. You've got a handoff, you've got an onboarding, you've got processes that then are, value added QBR, stuff that goes through cross-sell, upsell identification, and then renewal, right? Keep the buckets very high level. And, we looked at that and said, well, we listed out all the jobs to be done that we thought can fall into a couple buckets, which is one, what can potentially we have done for an AM? That's one specific type of task. Then what is one that we can assist them with? Like, we can do part of it and get it started for you. Right. And then what are things that we need to advise for you? Like, hey, this needs a human being's attention. It's not something I'm having AI actually do, but it provides information to you. And in my head, I broke those into two buckets, which is that if you think about anything along that journey, there's milestones, and that's a milestone agent, a very bespoke milestone agent. And then there's, continuous monitoring agents. If you think about it as a deal gets closed, at certain points in time, certain things should happen. That's easy. Opportunity closes, and then it's D-Day plus 30, 60, 90, whatever that is. It's easy to time bound those. The others then are upper and lower spec limit things like, I explained it as it's my heart rate. If my heart rate goes below something, it throws off an alert. If it goes above something, it throws off an alert. So those are two types of agents. The third type then is an orchestrator that talks to both of them and, aggregates the information from their very specific job. All of the tasks then fall into either it's a milestone, or it's, a continuous monitoring, or it's just information that I put together. And very simplistically, a very practical example is on a handoff, we have an AE that sells something and it's handed off to an account manager, and a team gets together, they put together a brief, they get information, they talk about all the stuff. Very simply, as soon as opportunity closes, there's the trigger. The AI can actually reach in, look at the contract, see what the terms are, look at the quote, see what products they bought, read all the information on the contact, all the notes and information that went along with it, summarize what the company does that we, procure the services, and put together a transition package and list out everybody that's on the account object, right? On the account team. You put together a brief packet, all the stuff, and if you drop a template in there, all the next steps that need to happen. This is our standard procedure. These are the things, right? So those are things that automatically happen, right? We don't need people to do that now. That's something that's done for you.
That's a milestone agent that's doing a handoff document.
Exactly. And that's something that normally a person would do. They put stuff together, they figure everything out, and then they call them, again, contextually, keep things simple in what you're doing. And it's either I'm going to do something for you, I'm going to assist you with something, or I'm going to tell you to do something. That's what the agents do, right? And again, then the journey, keep it simple. Don't say our journey is so complicated. Don't make it complicated. Look for the things that are so complicated. You're not going to then automate those. They're too complicated. But simplify the things that, that can be simplified, and rack and stack those. What are the high impact, lower effort items? Do your MVP. So we're really looking at this. That next layer to it then is, well, what is our MVP? We'll go fairly deep on one of the milestones, and we'll stay shallow on the others, but just to make sure it's a completer solution, that you're doing something along the way. And if you're taking the burden of
one milestone, the handoff, is that the one you're going deep on?
That's the first one we're going deep on, and then we're staying shallow on the other ones, like health monitoring and things like that. The simplest way to look at renewals, cross-sell and upsell, is if they're happy customers using your stuff, they'll probably buy something else, right? So it's like, well, what are the main things that we measure for happiness? Don't look at the 900 things and all the things. What are the simplest things? If they're not paying their bills, your utilization is off. Pretty simplistically, there's probably some intervention that should happen there. So keep it really, really simple. So we're trying to keep the other milestones simple along that journey. We also have a lot of information on propensity scores, et cetera, that we can surface up, that if they're happy and they're using our stuff, here's the potential cross-sell upsell. So we're addressing the other milestones, but we're making sure that for MVP, they're just simple things, right? And they're things that normally, like I could tell you right now, and probably other, companies are like this too. Your AM has a ton of different dashboards. Well, look at that one. Look at that one. Here's your single dashboard with your other dashboards that connect to these dashboards. And they have to search for insights. They don't need to be data scientists. They just need to know something is off. Go look at this one thing, or something is off. I've started the journey of what you need to do. Here are the next steps that you should probably do, right?
So if I'm understanding this right, and I know I'm simplifying this, but I think for my simple brain and for people who are just hoping to get started, I'm going to get the handoff right. I'm going to get a few simple signals in place so that post handoff, I know when to pay attention to something. That's kind of the scope of this first MVP.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, absolutely. The rest of the milestones, again, keep your milestones simple. I think Walter, you've got 6 milestones across the spectrum. We're going fairly deep on one. We're staying shallow on the other ones, and we're looking for things. Again, if you list out the jobs to be done, that's how you select what should we do. Or if I need to re-engineer this process, is it a high impact, low effort to re-engineer a process? So Walter's comment before of things don't have to be perfect. And if we need to re-engineer something, we're not doing something that's open heart surgery. We're selecting a job to be done that we know that's high impact and lower effort. So we can retool something and retrain, whether it's checklists or processes or coordination or communication, whatever that is. Those things, if they're higher impact and lower effort to modify. And again, we're looking at it as either I'm going to do it for you, assist you with it, or I'm going to prescribe what you need to do. It's a no-brainer.
Walter, make this simple for me and the others listening. What advice would you have for people who are like, gosh, it sounds easy, but I don't know how I would implement it. Like, I want to automate the predictable. I want to keep it simple. I want to get an MVP in place. How would someone listening to this kind of go implement some of what we're hearing from Dan right now?
How can I make it as simple as possible? I think just by kind of like restating some of what we've said, you need a team, you need to assemble a team. So first, like, just check all the boxes that we've been discussing about, like getting smart on AI and building that muscle with quick wins. But at some point where there is enough confidence across the team where you feel like we can actually tackle our biggest pain points, like the things that are really gonna, there is always something that everyone knows in a company that we need to fix this, right? Like if we don't fix this, we're not gonna hit, the growth rates or get back to growth, or growth grow at the rate that we need to be growing by, because investors request it and so on. So until that AI go-to-market leader is ready to tackle that challenge, well, like when that point has come, it's really like you need a team that can go for it, and that's RevOps and someone from the business that can speak of being a design partner for whatever area in the customer journey you are designing for. It can be marketing on top of the funnel, it can be CS on the right side of the bow tie, whatever there is, right? And then just like start with, or like, let's get leadership buy-in, that one slide that like, what would it mean to the business if we can solve this? And then just like go through this process, right? Like I think like the pitfall here is there's two, I've seen like two major approaches to AI. One is, well, AI, hopping on the AI train means we get an AI vendor, right? So, oh, we have a CS retention issue, we're gonna get a CS platform, right? There is like the one that sounds the coolest from the market. We have these AI features and so on. That's like the vendor first, and then like they go on a journey to chase down vendors. And then another one is, we're gonna build this internally, right? And within that group, which is the one that we've been discussing here, there is like usually two pitfalls. Like one is, well, AI, like we have to train this model, and like you have to do all this stuff with the LLM, and like create our stuff, and that never gets you off the ground. And then there is another, which is, we're just gonna plug this stuff and ask it questions, right? And then you get all the hallucination and like bad quality data and so on. So there is that middle ground that has to do with, be very clear around like, what are you trying to solve, and map out the specific jobs that we want, where we want an agentic use case to step in versus automation. And then just like follow that process, right? Like it will like, there is a process that, like, now we have the jobs to be done. Let's design those jobs to be done from an AI perspective. What is the human doing? What is the agent doing? What type of agent do we need? And then what's the technical solution to do that? Are we using ChatGPT teams? Are we using Gemini Workbench? Are we using a workflow builder to connect with her? Like whatever that is, it all starts coming together. And then hands-on, we're implementing to solve those like 3-4 key things that we decided. So it's not hard. It's just a process, right? It's a long process to bring everyone along and do this step by step until you get to a point where, all right, like this is what we're doing.
Yeah, and I can kind of sum it up. It's like, start to gain some knowledge, identify things that are lower risk, have some small wins, and then select something larger that you think you could actually accomplish.
Love that. Ian, will you bring the slide up that I think has a summary that pretty much mirrors what you just said, Dan? Not by accident, because we obviously know the story. I just want to see how close we were. Yeah, react to this, Dan. Is this how close is this to what you were just saying?
To a certain extent, the first one is the only one that sometimes it's not something that's necessarily working great. But if it's a lower risk item that can have high impact to modifying, changing, or redesigning during this process, I'd say it's within scope. But the rest of it, I think, is absolutely spot on.
So you said quick wins, low risk, get your hands dirty, roll up your sleeves. Let's just develop some internal expertise and prove what we can do. That's number 2. Or number 3 is prove. 2 is develop some skills, get familiar with the tools, education journey. 3 is prove that we can make some stuff happen. Even if it's not production quality, just, this is back in the lab, back in the workshop, prove that some stuff can happen. And then I think you went for budget so that you could do something big. That's what you just said. Let's go attack a real problem that's going to really move the needle on the business.
Yep.
Amazing. And that's where that prioritization came into play. You listed out all the jobs to be done. You figured out what an MVP would require. We're not going to try to attack it all at once. We're going to go deep in one area, shallow in others. That's prioritization, I think, Walter, that took some manpower to go do, to map it all out and make the prioritization. And now we're just iterating our way forward. Before we get to, and that's where winning by design can actually help. You know, you've developed some internal expertise. You've started to map out the battlefield. You started to prove some skills. You started to show that you can make these AI work for us versus the other way around. And now you want to go after something kind of real. Let's do kind of a final word thing. Maybe Ian, you can go to the next slide while we do a final word thing. Walter, any final advice for people on the call who would like to go down this journey within their own company?
And I was just replying to a question in the chat from Shep Meher, which is my final thought would be don't wait until the process is fixed. Just like use this opportunity to fix the process in being smart about the points where you got like laser sharp surgery instead of open heart surgery. Let's get those done. And then, you know, like whoever the go-to-market teams are going to win this race are the ones that become fluent on AI by building in-house. It's just like, it's too big of a thing to think that you can just outsource it and, you know, like get a sales engagement platform that has an AI component or a CS platform that has an AI component. And you need that, you know, like we need that tech stack in the go-to-market organization, but we also need the in-house capabilities that naturally organically come like are closest to the revenue operations team. So I think that's the team that naturally like is spearheading this evolution in the go-to-market. Like we need those capabilities to build things without relying on vendors every time. So that would be my parting thought for everyone here.
Just get in the game, it sounds like.
Get in the game.
Get in the game. All right, Dan, you get the last words. How can you help? What wisdom can you lay on the people on this call who would like to follow in your footsteps?
It's the journey of 1,000 miles. It starts with a single step. Start to learn it. Find out what's out there in the art of the possible. Surround yourself with those that are of a like mind, and then find ways that your curiosity intersects with things that actually are meaningful and impactful for your business, but in a low risk way that you can gain the credibility you need.
Amazing. Well, here's to your courage. Here's to the courage of everybody on this call. And here's to a future that is where we're automating things that are predictable and where we're humanizing things and making special the things that only humans can do. That kind of hybrid approach that you're building with the co-pilot and the human still in the loop is the future. It is the future. And if we get in the game, as you said, Walter, and we take those first steps, as you said, Dan, that's the only way for us to make our way towards that future. And whoever does will be defining the future, and whoever doesn't will be playing catch up. Here's to all the innovators here. Thank you, everybody, for joining. If you'd like some help, we'd love to talk to you about launching your own pilot.